I'm your host, Dino Watt, and get ready to be inspired as you learn exactly how to own your role. And welcome, everybody, to the Own Your Role podcast. Excited again to share with you another unique entrepreneur. I get the opportunity to talk with a lot of people throughout the days and through the different conferences I go to and my speaking engagements. And I'm always so intrigued by how people have taken their skills, their talents, and up-leveled them and been able to share that with the world. And I'm always trying to find really interesting people to share with you on the show. And first of all, before we get to our guest for the day, I want to thank you all for sharing the podcast with your friends and colleagues and reaching out to me and talking to me about what you've enjoyed about the podcast. I love getting those messages from people, and especially when I run into you at events and you tell me, hey, I just listened to the episode on so-and-so or this, and you really give me that feedback. That means the world to me. So keep watching, keep listening, make sure you subscribe and like to the show and share it with your friends and colleagues. Tonight, we are going to, I say tonight, but I guess wherever you're listening to it today, I'm going to be sharing with you a gentleman named Dr. Mark Scherer. And did I say that right, Mark?
Yeah, Scherer.
And, with a name like Dino, I'm always wanting to make sure that I say that properly. And I probably should have done that on our intro call. But with Mark, we're going to learn how he is the coach for coaches. So if you have a coach, you have somebody out there who is helping you do something to go to the next level in your practice or your business, or you are one of those coaches, coach is your coach. Mark is your coach for that. And I'm excited to dive into it. We got to talk a little bit on the pre-show, and I got to tell you, his story is pretty fascinating, and what he's been able to do is really impressive. So sit back, relax, get some notebook paper out, or if you're on your treadmill, get ready to hit that little note button to make sure that you listen in. I'm excited to share with you. So let's get started today. Dr. Mark, welcome to the show.
Nice to meet you, Dino. And Mark's good, man.
What's that?
Mark's good.
Not doctor?
Yeah, Mark's good. Thank you.
You bet. Absolutely. Well, Mark, I'm excited to have you here. And we always start our episodes off with the story, because I believe stories are what connects all of us together. So you can give us just a little brief history of your life and what kind of got you to this place right now.
Yeah. Growing up, I guess I was always interested in like biblical stories and miracles and all that stuff. So, but I was raised Catholic, and they didn't really talk about, you had to believe what they told you and you couldn't ask questions. I was inquisitive about it, but
Sure.
it was like my questions would get shut down. So I had a kind of a tough childhood as well. Like I shared a little bit about I had a speech impediment, I had a stuttering issue, and how that affected me in life. My mother was schizophrenic. My dad was kind of a strong disciplinarian. And so I had a lot of pain in my childhood. I was carrying over to my adult life. I had a couple failed marriages early on in life, and both of them, it was like I had recreated my parents' relationship again. So that's what I started getting into, doing some therapy with people, and that was fascinating because we never talked about any of that type of stuff growing up. So I started to see the benefit of it, and I started reading books like The Seed of the Soul and Life and Teachings of Masters of the Far East, and some of Michael Gerber's work, and Napoleon Hill. Started noticing all the similarities in all the different work, and I got really interested in it. And I had numerous businesses I had going on. And one of the things that I was doing was I was using the businesses to fund my ability to take classes. So I was traveling to Europe, I was traveling throughout the US, and a lot of time I was gone several months out of the year doing sabbaticals and taking classes in consciousness. So that was something that was always interested with me. And then I mentioned to you, I got into a pretty severe accident, maybe 20 years ago, and couldn't walk. I wasn't able to keep my eye on my business. I had a big embezzlement at the time when I wasn't able to do that. So my life got really, really tough really quick. I remember one day when I found, Friday, November the 13th, 2009, I had told my bank about the embezzlement, and they said they were going to work with me through everything, But on Friday, November 13th, 2009, I had about, maybe 300 something $1,000 going out in payroll that day. My people go to the bank to cash their checks, and there's no money in the account. Call my banker. There was probably like 500 grand in 5 or 600,000 in that account when there should have been in there. And call my banker. Nobody answers. Finally, about 3 hours of me worrying, they finally get on the phone. They go, "Oh, that embezzlement you had, we got a little worried. So we called your line of credit due and we swept your bank account."
Oh, no way.
Oh, wait.
Oh, jeez Louise.
Wait.
It's even worse because that's my birthday, Mark. So I'm really kind of upset that happened on my birthday.
Friday, November the 3rd.
November 13th is my birthday.
November 13th. Wow.
I'll never forget that for you.
Wow. Yep. So it was really stressful. I had my identity tied up in what I did and my role in a construction company I hated doing, and it all came down really quickly. One day I pulled into my garage and closed the door and left the motor running.
Wow.
For real. So, really just really hitting rock bottom.
Sure.
And I didn't leave it running for very long. And then within a short period of time, I'm taking a new class in consciousness probably the next week. And I'm telling this guy what's going on. It was really interesting. His response to me about killing myself or thinking about killing myself. He goes, "Cool." He goes, "How can I help you with that?" I mean, not like, how can I help you get out of it? He goes, you need some pills, you need a rope, you need what can I help you? How can I help you facilitate, taking care of yourself that way? And I was like, you prick.
Wow.
You little, and I remember going home that day. I go, man, that guy was like, man, like heartless, whatever. And I got home and I started doing some reflecting. And I went, oh my God, I was trying to get sympathy out of this guy. And he wasn't having none of it. None of it. And I went, wow, how long have I used sympathy to make excuses for myself?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge wake-up call. Even though I was doing all this other consciousness work, it was mostly mental. And a lot of the hurt, the pains in the body, the emotional pains in the body, things that deal with it is always about adjusting your thoughts. Think positive thoughts, don't think negative thoughts. Well, if you got a lot of trauma in your body, that's tough for people to do. It's kind of like herding cats,
Yeah, because it's like always that chronic pain that's happening, and it's a constant reminder of the pain you're in, both mentally and physically. I want to ask you a question because we have it's not a theme that comes up, but definitely there's been a conversation around it. And one of my missions in life is to reverse the direction of divorce, addiction, and suicide amongst business owners and their team members. And I've had suicide affect my family. I'm very curious about this. If you remember, and if not, it's totally okay. What was the thought that came into your head that got you to turn the car off and not go through with it? Would you remember if there was a thought?
I had a lot of people in my life that I cared about, and I had I guess I had a thought that like this isn't going to help anything. And it was interesting when I met this guy. He said, you can do that, but whatever you have that you're avoiding, he goes, you'll take it into your next life. And I didn't really believe in incarnation or anything, but just in case, just in case, I was like, maybe it's time to hedge my bets, right?
Wow.
So, I got involved in doing those classes based on the fear of making sure I didn't take it in my next life. And at some point in time, I could do all that stuff, whether it's true or not, doesn't really matter. At some point in time, I started to do this work because of what a benefit it was for me and what I was getting out of it.
Yeah.
And that was a big turning point for me.
Wow. So you took that knowledge and you started to really work inside of that space of learning how it can help you. I'd love for you to share with the audience some of the results that you told me on the pre-show around how it really did, not just mentally, but physically in very big ways affect you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and there's the feelings we have are either toxic or life-giving. There's instead of positive and negative, the way we describe it here is some feelings are toxic and some feelings are life-giving. Stanford did a study, and they said in the study it says complaining damages the neurons in the brain. So if somebody's complaining, there's a certain feeling associated with that, like a feeling of victimhood, right? And whatever the chemical cocktail the body produces in that state actually dims out the neurons and makes a person stupid. So if something can affect us on that level, same thing with our body. So whenever I got into this work, I had allergy. I've been taking allergy medicine for 30 something years. My allergies healed in the first day I did a class with this guy. I've been wearing glasses for 37 years at that time. My vision healed within a week, maybe 10 days, something like that.
Wow.
Now I just went to when I moved to Florida, I got a new driver's license, and I could read the line below what I was required to read, which I thought was pretty good. I'm 66, almost 65 now. Wow. So, I mean, it have no...
And all this coming from healing the
toxicity in my body.
And trauma in the body.
Yes, sir.
And when it happened, obviously it takes a certain amount of belief, faith, whatever you want to call it, in the modality. But what was it really? I mean, because obviously you didn't know. You were hoping this would help. You were hoping that this would be a thing. But what was your reaction?
I was just following directions, dude.
Oh, really?
I wasn't sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
Do this, and now I'm doing this.
Yeah, it's a really, really simple system. Like I said, most modalities are about thinking positive and negative.
Yeah.
And we're very different than that. What we do here, we do everything in actions and results. And what we do, rather than try to monitor to regulate thought, because that's like I said, it's like chasing, herding cats.
Yeah.
What we do is we change body chemistry, which changes brain chemistry, which changes thoughts automatically. And that process of that embodiment process changes behaviors in seconds instead of weeks.
So it's not a matter of just like you said, thinking positively or affirmations or even awareness of, my childhood trauma or whatever. There's a physical aspect to it.
Yeah, there's when somebody has trauma, their body goes into a sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight.
Right.
Most people are operating in fight or flight, even though they may have a car, they may have a business, they may have a wife. They're still in that fight or flight response, and they'll get triggered, and they'll have a reactive pattern will come through them of whatever happened to them at 3 or 4, 5, 6 years old. Right.
Right.
So we have a way of healing that pattern within a matter of minutes or seconds or whatever. It can take that long, can be that quick, or it may take a little bit longer, just depending on the willingness of the individual to do what we're asking. And once that pattern is healed, it's replaced with a new pattern instantaneously. And people will have new behaviors, new way of talking, new way of speaking, like instead of speaking a bunch of knots, I don't like this, I don't want this. And by the way, Dino, there's a direct correlation between the word not and anxiety.
Huh.
The higher the percentage of knots a person speaks, the higher their level of anxiety. So for people who are
NOTs, like saying, I'm not this, I'm not that.
Yeah, I don't like this, I don't want this, I shouldn't have done this, life's not fair, all those things. But there's a direct correlation between the word not and anxiety. And it's also a sign of suppressed anger and resentment. So the way we work with language, we can find out what's going on with somebody sometime in 3, 4, 5 words, find the root cause of it, reverse it in a matter of minutes. It's fascinating, dude. Wow. I mean, I've been doing this for 16 years now, and every day I'm like, oh my gosh, I have the best job ever.
So, because you went from being a student of this, seeing how it affected your life and really, for lack of a better word, kind of miraculous ways, from your injuries to your sight to your allergies. And how long did it take you to decide you wanted to start learning how to do it?
First class.
Wow.
And by the way, I'm still a student.
Sure. Makes
Yeah.
sense.
I remember reading a book that says, to master something, stay a beginner. So
Yeah.
my girlfriend, I told her, if you ever hear me say I got it or I understand it, you come kick me in the jewels. And she would relish the opportunity to do
I
so.
bet, especially on certain days, right? Yeah, totally. Wow. So let's talk through some of the kind of the actionable, when people are listening to the show and they're hearing that, obviously their first thought is like, okay, was it for a moment or whatever? Was it just belief system, whatever? Like, how does somebody listening to this kind of quantify what you went through?
Well, I'll just describe how the knot patterns come into existence. How about that?
Okay. Sure.
Okay. So, well, one, if you go, I mean, like, if you go to a story of Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good, bad, right, and wrong, positive and negative, all that stuff. That's duality. So here's what's so different about what we do compared to other people. Everyone else I know is still speaking the language of duality to attempt to correct the issues that speaking the language of duality caused.
Okay.
Okay. Have you ever seen the movie by chance, Arrival, with
Yes.
Amy Adams and Jerry?
Sure.
Yeah. So when she was learning the new language, all of a sudden she started to have skills that other people would consider extraordinary. She was like, time didn't exist or existed as a past, present, future, continuous, like, moment of now, right?
Right.
So in this language of duality, all pain and suffering exist in the language of duality. All disease is created in the language of duality. When you're in what we call unity consciousness and using a language of unity, none of that exists. It's impossible to exist in there because you're in a state of ease. And this may sound really, really weird and really, really out there, but I guarantee you it works. And when somebody begins to do it, one of the things that happens is their intuition will go up 10, 20, 30x immediately.
So give us an example of that, of how somebody would practically use this. Maybe somebody listening to right now is like, okay, what's a practical example that I can start looking at, of not looking at the duality of right or wrong, healthy or sick, whatever.
Let's just work with the language, the knot piece.
Okay.
So where somebody picks that up in their own life is when they had a trauma as a kid. What happens is they surround that trauma with a whole bunch of not statements. Life shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't have got my parents. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. And they surround that trauma with all those not statements in a way for that person to be able to survive that trauma.
Okay.
Okay. And once they go into that language of survival, in other words, duality, we're not an I am, we're an I am, not an I am not. So once they begin to speak that way, it produces lenses from which they look at life. And that's all they can see. Is it goes back to complaining. And what they're doing is they're programming their subconscious to see what's wrong with life, and also project that wrongness onto this fabric of life. So I can work with somebody over a period of time and have them adjust this language. It may take months to do so. Or I can take them back to that moment when all this stuff occurred, have them find the blessing in it, not just forgive. Forgiveness gets somebody back to a place of, okay, there's a way that we work here that actually has a person go, oh my gosh, thank you so much for the experience.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah. And how I found some of these pieces where I've worked with some people involved with satanic ritual abuse and some really, really heavy trauma stuff, and put them back together in 2 or 3 sessions.
Wow.
So once they and if you're trying to do it by habitual change here, instead of speaking what you don't like and don't want and all those things, just start replacing all those words with what you love, even if you have yet to have it yet. Like if you're looking for money, I don't have enough money. I don't like this. What about money? I love having plenty of money. And you start to replace all those things with the word love, but you got to give yourself the feeling of it. I really, really love. It's going to be emotional for somebody, especially if somebody's carrying trauma.
So if the habit of I never have enough money, or no one will ever really love me,
I love having plenty. I love having plenty.
Okay.
I love being loved. And if you can, and one of the things we do here too, we use humor as a vehicle for transformation. To
Love it.
produce, to produce a pattern shift, it takes 400 to 600 repetitions normally.
Okay.
If you use humor, it only takes 10 to 20
Oh, really? Why is that?
because it bypasses the defense mechanisms in the brain.
Oh, wow.
You,
I love that.
what age are you? I mean, get a little personal.
52 this year.
52.
Yep.
So you remember some of the comedians when like people would make fun of different races. The comedian like blacks would make fun of Jews would make fun of Italians.
Sure. Sure.
Everybody would joke about all this stuff. So when we could joke about all that,
Wow.
it reduced tension, right?
Yeah,
we
reduced the
make
pain
fun of our
it
differences and celebrate our humanity.
Yeah. Recognize and make fun of it. So from 400 and 600 repetitions down to, you said 20 to 60?
10 to 20. And
10 to
personally,
20.
I believe I'm really funny, so I believe I could do it in 3.
Me too. So I should be pretty good at it. Yeah, I can totally see that though, because humor just breaks down that barrier in both your mind and in other people too.
Yep. And it separates them. Go ahead, pardon me.
Well, I was just gonna say, that's why the danger of we can't say that anymore is so huge, because it's going to perpetuate the pain and not allow us to release it.
Yep. It's going to spread hate.
Yeah. Wow, that's huge. And I could see where the humor itself, it goes back to the old saying, so cliche, right? Humor is laughter is the best medicine, but it really can be such a quick pathway into getting people to connect with one another. Way more than logic, way more than explanation, way more than it's just getting that shortcut to humor.
And it separates somebody from their story, which is key. Most people think their story is them.
Oh.
So when we can separate somebody from their story, now all of a sudden they realize, oh my God, who the hell was I 30 seconds ago? I mean, it's that fast. It may be the first time that person has been separated from their story, and most likely these identities, these familiar patterns about what people speak about life are passed down. So I like you, Dino, man. You got some.
Oh,
you're a contemplator.
Yeah, I just had a really interesting thought though, right? Like going back to the people. So people who are trying to stop the humor, who are offended by, a comedian or whatever, like just think about the pain that they must be in and be so comfortable with that pain that they don't want anybody else to be out of that pain.
Right.
Or they feel uncomfortable being out of that pain. Wow.
Yep. Or that's what a lot of people talk about. They talk about people being in their comfortable zone around pain.
Sure.
I say that's horse hockey. Instead of saying comfortable, say familiar. Say they're familiar with being miserable. Not comfortable being miserable, but they're familiar with being miserable. When somebody uses the word comfortable to describe misery, then the person goes, well, if this is comfortable, what the hell am I going for? You're familiar with being in extreme pain. You're familiar being in misery. You're familiar being in worry. You're familiar being in poverty. You're not comfortable at it. You're miserable at it. The person's got to get truthful. Once they can get truthful, then they can move it. The truth will set you free kind of deal.
Yeah. Is that why people have a hard time breaking through certain barriers in their businesses and relationships? Is because not that it's comfortable, but it's familiar. Even the pain of, I got to work hard to make money, or I hit certain levels of ceilings. We talked about one of your clients earlier who busted through what seemed like a really good ceiling that it was at. Even more, is that one of the reasons why? Because people just get so familiar with that pain?
Yeah. So whatever somebody experiences in their childhood experiences define your relationship to love.
Okay.
So let's say if somebody had a very painful childhood, as soon as something that they love begins to come into their life, it also brings up that pain and they push it away.
Okay.
Be it a relation. I worked with I worked with a lady who was an attorney. It was really interesting. I was getting into this coaching modality. I've been in it maybe 3 years or so, and I was doing yoga. I saw her coming up. Hey, how you doing today? She looked at me and she just started crying. And I was like, she goes, and she goes, I don't even know why I'm doing that. I said, well, I said, I know. I said, I've been coaching people, and people just were walking up to me and started crying. I said, we give them my card. And I said, okay, I'm a coach. Give me a call. And she was telling me the story. She had sexual assault in her childhood.
Mm.
And one of the things that happened was when she was going through the assault, she knew she felt a lot of guilt and shame for it. However, her body responded as pleasure. There were some times so, and that's, that actually happens sometimes in rape, sometimes it doesn't, or sexual assault.
Sure.
And so when she was speaking about it, she goes, I feel guilty about feeling good. So that was inside her subconscious. So anytime something good would come up in her life, the guilt would show up and she would sabotage it.
Yeah.
Boyfriends, everything. Her business would get to a certain level, glass ceiling, lose everything, or lose everybody, and start it over and build it back up. Glass ceiling, bam, right back down. Things start getting good. Guilt would take over and kick and take it up, take it out. So I worked with her a few sessions, and I remember she came to a class with me a few months afterwards, and she looked so dramatically different. I didn't even recognize her. Had lost weight, her skin looked great, looked way, way, way younger. And she goes, thank you so much. She remember maybe 4 months since we had been working together. She goes, my business has tripled. And she goes, I'm in a relationship with a brand new guy who's way, way different than anybody I met before.
Mm.
So,
wow.
Yeah, one more thing too. One thing we do here too, rather than work on the problem, we work on the glue that holds the problem into place. Which is
Explain
different too.
Yeah, explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So there's 4 things that hold a problem into place. I'm talking about like a repetitive pattern. And those 4 things are shame, blame, guilt, and hate. So rather than going after the problem, what we do is we remove the glue first, and then the problem dissolves.
Has nothing to stick to. It can't stay.
Yeah, exactly. It's like shellac in the back of a jigsaw puzzle. You have to try to pull it apart, but it can crumble real easy if there's nothing on it. So all this stuff moves really, really quickly when we address those things first.
Wow. So I bet you see a lot of this in your coaching with executives, business leaders who, and it's funny because oftentimes you look at people who are successful. Again, you're mentioning somebody earlier who was doing, was it $30 million in their business. I think a lot of people would be looking at that going like, wow, that's pretty amazing. That's awesome. And yet there's always, as Gay Hendricks calls it, that upper limit. Right? What is that thing you're hitting that then causes you to either shrink back, pull back, or destroy it?
Yeah, or destroy your health trying to effort your way through it. Punch your way through it. There's an easy way to do this. There is an easy way to do this, and it starts with we're a human being, not a human doing. So it's not how much you do, it's who you're being as you do it. Be do have, not do have be.
So, but you just said it. There's an easy way to do that. I could see where people are listening to this, and a lot of people listening to the show are professionals, doctors, people who've gone through and put their nose to the grindstone to get where they are and worked hard to do it. And you say there's an easy way to do this, but is it a situation where that the ease of the way is why nobody's taking the way, right? It's like you're looking at it, it's too easy. It can't be that easy. It's got to be hard.
Yeah.
I know I deal with that a lot of times in my own life of, well, come on, it can't be that easy.
Yeah. It's interesting, one of our top coaches, I started working with her about 6 years ago. And I presented I said, it's really easy. It's just a choice. Everything you're going on in your life right now just comes out of a choice between hate and love. She's the first and only person that's done this with me. When I gave her the choice, she just went, I went, holy my God, does she have rabies or what? She wouldn't even answer, wouldn't make a choice, dude. She just sat there and growled. She couldn't choose between hate and love.
Oh,
And I worked with her. I had 2 sessions with her. And back then I was a little new at this. I was trying to overachieve. So my session was probably 2 hours long. I was really working with her, really cares, you know. I was not, and, choice between hate and love. And just, I mean, growled every time. And then one time she just went, okay, I choose love. So say it again. About the second or third time she said it, I mean, waterworks, man.
sure.
And a couple of months later, I said, what was going on with you that you couldn't make that simple choice? She goes, the voice in my head was going so loud that it can't be this easy. And she had been going to therapy for 20 years and taken antidepressants and mood stabilizers. And she was 100 pounds, something heavier back then when we started working together. And I mean, it's amazing what's happened with her. And her kids all had learning disabilities and all that's healed in them. And doctors told her that they'd never have a job, and they're all excelling now. It's amazing.
So why is it that I'll say I know many people look at that and say, yeah, it's too easy. Like it can't be this easy. Why is it that we look for the hard? Why does it feel like it, if we aren't working hard at something, if we aren't having the sweat drip down our back, if we're not going through the late nights and the struggle, that it seems we dismiss it.
Yeah, people compete on what they can complain about.
Oh, snap. That's true.
Yeah. I was leading a class in Houston a number of years ago, and I said, tell me what you don't like. Oh my God, dude. I mean, people couldn't wait to speak. I said, just give me 3 things. No one can stop at 3 things. I don't like my kids leaving their stuff on, my husband leaving his underwear around. I don't like struggling, whatever. I mean, just, oh my gosh, just compete. I mean, they couldn't shut up about what they're complaining about. About an hour later into the talk, I said, tell me what you really love. I could have dropped a pin in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing is when somebody's in that I am not mentality, they're going to compete on how much pain and suffering they can handle, and they'll compete on it and brag about it. When they begin to rewire the brain into speaking what they love, then all of a sudden they begin to compete on how much they can give and receive love, and how much pleasure they can have in life, and how cancel pleasure, peace, how much peace they can have in their life.
Yep. It's interesting because that compete. I mean, that's a writer downer, by the way, for anybody listening to it. Like people compete on what they complain about. Mm-hmm. It's this commiseration feeling, this feeling of almost upmanships of actually feeling like you're part of the group. Like if you were everybody listening to this, if you were thinking about the top 5 people you hang around, and when you get together, if you were the one oddball who's like, I'm finding peace and happiness in my life every day. I love what I get to do. I love my patients. I love my clients. I love everything about my family and myself. Sadly, I think there'd be people who would probably not want to hang around them and ostracize them because it makes them uncomfortable. Wow.
Yeah, it does. I remember when I was going through my blues phase, I had friends who were really enthusiastic about life, and I just wanted to lay on the couch and lick my wounds, dude.
Sure.
And I was like, how are they have that much energy? How are they doing all this stuff? Like, oh my God, that looks exhausting.
Yeah.
Our natural state is enthusiasm, not excitement, enthusiasm. Most people live life by exciting, but excitement's based on your exterior, enthusiasm is based on your interior. Sure. The word enthusiasm comes from the Greek word entheos, and it means with God. Different, really different. And so when somebody's in the excitement world of life, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to get this, Dino, I'm getting ready to get this sale. Oh, when I get this sale, everything's going to be great in my life. I'm going to be able to retire early. And then poof, it goes away. Oh, crash.
Yeah.
down Netflix, Lion King, whatever, Tiger King, go binge watch a bunch of stuff. And then, okay, maybe get back out and work again. I can do this. I can do this. Oh, here's another opportunity. Excitement, 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 excitement. It doesn't close. It's this roller coaster of a life. Enthusiasm is realizing that everything on the outer is a reflection of the inner, and all you do is change your move to a greater and greater and greater level of parasympathetic nervous system, which activates greater and greater levels of clarity, creativity, and intuition. And you start taking the appropriate actions at the perfect time.
Does that allow, I mean, the practice in that seems like, for me, coming up is the idea that everything we've ever been taught has an end. There's an end of the episodes to watch. There's an end of the, life. There's always an end. So it sounds like you have to get to a place of recognizing that there's no end. It's just more levels, and maybe not even in the physical realm, but to get to a place to where there's not an ending for my happiness. There's not an ending for my wealth.
Dude, just for you, man.
Well, it's fascinating.
Yeah, great observation. Yeah, the journey becomes the pleasure, and the beauty exists in the discovery of the journey, not an end goal.
Yeah.
And it's a really different way to live. It's way different than the way I was taught.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I never thought about that before. When you talk about that, when people use that, almost sounds cliche all the time. It's not the end. It's not the destination, the journey. No. It's that there is no end. Like, there's no end to it. There's no destination. It's just a journey.
Yeah, I saw an interesting video on Facebook one day that talked about the greatest feelings we could have as humans. And sex was an 8 out of 10. Psychedelics was a 9 out of 10. And the only thing that was a 10 out of 10 was the conscious use of our co-creative gift. Now, I remember back in the wild days, I put 8 and 9 together, and I thought I was at 17.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people get stuck in those places when they don't have an understanding of how life really works. How to say it, the way I'll do an analogy with you. So, Dino, while we're on the call, I had a brand new car delivered to you, my gift for being on your podcast. It's a $500 million Mercedes in your perfect color, whatever color you want. You put the button, it turns your perfect color just for you. And you've got to be really careful because this thing's got a 5,000 horsepower motor. And you hit a button, it's going to fly. You hit another button, it's going to do space travel. And you hit another button, it's going to do multiples of the speed of light. So imagine, if you really believe me, you'd be cutting your podcast short. You'd be out the door hauling ass out there, right?
Sure.
And you get in the car, you hit a button, and all of a sudden you smack dab into Pluto. And then you start cussing me out for giving you the gift. And the analogy of this story is that's how most people have lived their life. They didn't understand how the gift of life worked. They got really excited about it. They did something that was out of context, or that they didn't understand how to use this wonderful gift of manifestation.
Of the crashing into Pluto. Understand that crashing into Pluto was a gift as well.
Right. Yep.
Wow.
So when we begin to understand how this wonderful gift works, life becomes really, everything in life becomes a blessing.
I can so imagine. I mean, I'm just looking at my own life, but also thinking about my clients of if and when you get to the place of looking at all of this stuff, oh, I'm having a challenge with a client, or I'm having a challenge with an employee, or we're struggling right now to find new team members for our company. How can we look at that as the gift, not the challenge, not the frustration?
I'll give you an example. When I first started my company, I was doing a lot of things myself, running on a tight budget. Or I had missed an appointment. I had gotten a coaching call. I'd missed an appointment outside my office. I was on a coaching call, and I was frazzled, man. I was a little stressed, And my client, who's also a coach, was telling me, so you need to get a personal assistant. I'm like, I just got this thing started. I'm not gonna take on the overhead of a personal assistant. I said, I can do this myself and and all that stuff. So I I noticed I was speaking a bunch of knots, and that's like a red flag for me. I'm like, oh crap, there's that little sneaky ass limiting belief knot system going on there. So I sat down on my desk and I just kind of leaned back and I said, finally I have my perfect assistant. And I just really had my body go into a state of ease. And I wrote down everything that this person was able to do. And I just went, oh my God, this is great. So about 30 or 45 minutes later, I'm on a call with another client, and we're going and speaking with, doing a coaching session. And I have told her nothing about any of this. And she goes, have you ever thought about getting a personal assistant? And I'm just sitting there going, come on. And she goes, I said, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I just thought about this recently. And she goes, where I came from? I said, no. I used to work at Google. I was an executive assistant for high C level. I was $130 an hour personal assistant. I'm like, well, I ain't paying $130 an hour for personal assistant. I didn't say it. That was all in my thoughts. And she goes, don't worry, you don't have to pay that for me. And she goes, how does $30 an hour sound? And I like to take some classes in exchange for some of the other money. I'm like, yeah. This lady typed 110 words a minute. She could sit there and talk to me while typing 110 words a minute on another subject.
Wow.
Put together a website, marketing materials. I mean, all this stuff for $30 an hour. And I mean, her, 30 minutes with her was probably half a day or longer with somebody else.
Sure.
I mean,
at less ability. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I just went, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This stuff really, really works. Yeah. So it always works. It's just most people are manifesting from a place of want, not a place of ease. The chemicals the body produces in a state of want is frustration. And I'll give you an example. If you really wanted to have an orgasm and couldn't have it, what's the feelings associated with not being able to have one?
Frustration, disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It talks about, don't, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So the chemicals that the body produces in a state of want are frustration, anger, resentment, and they're toxic to our system. So when somebody manifests from a place of want, and they may get what they want, what they ask for, but since it was manifested from a place of frustration and anger, and resentment, when they get that manifestation, they'll go, why did I ask for something more? They're not going to be satisfied with it because they weren't satisfied going into it. This is really different.
It's really, really cool. No,
thank you.
No, it's really neat. I love it. I mean, it's just inspiring to think of all the different ways to it we can change that. Well, the thought I had when you were talking about that was the idea of, when we have pain in our body, it's because it wants us. The body is saying, pay attention to this.
Yeah.
Right? This is where we need to put our attention.
Yep.
And that's a good thing, right? If I have pain in my heart, I should probably pay attention to that, see what's going on, pain in my leg, whatever. When we have pain in our business and our relationships, we want to get rid of it as quickly as we can without ever having to deal with the pain.
Right.
Like if you have if you're struggling with finding the right team members on your team, or if you have, let's just say you have a team member who is maybe not a right fit and you're going to have to let them go, you struggle with the idea of, oh, should I, or I don't really want to have to deal with that. Or it's like, man, this is such a great opportunity for you to learn how to do this in a loving, kind manner, how to take care of yourself and the other people on your team, how to let this person know that you love them enough to let them go because you don't want to live in resentment with them or regret or frustration. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I worked with a national grocery chain years ago when I was in Austin, and I was working with people that the HR department didn't have any, like they couldn't turn, like mid-level managers that they were having issues with. I had 100% success ratio turn in their employees.
Wow.
And these are people who, like I said, are going through their own HR department and everything, and they were purchasing, I choose to remember, maybe 3 to 5 sessions. I choose to remember what it was back then. And but after one session, they were calling me and go, man, the people on their team are going, wow, this person's really, really different. Whatever you're doing is really working. So it gets to the seat of the problem so quickly.
Well, how do you deal with that and I know we're almost close to our time, but let's just say you have an executive that you're working with and they have this challenge with their team members. You're working with the executive, trying to help them see these things in a different way and get from that not space to the love and the positivity side of it. How do they transfer that to team members who might not be mentally ready or willing to be in that space?
Yeah,
Because they're not the coach, right? Those executives aren't coaches to know how to speak about it the way you do.
Yeah, I have worked with other companies as well, where we put together programs for them to be able to work with us, to work with the system as well. There's there's ways you can do it. This makes it really, really simple, and people begin to get it, and we make it into a game where it becomes fun. I'm sure you've heard of like Myers-Briggs testing and DISC testing and all that stuff.
Sure.
So we have a diagnostic tool that's probably 100 to 1,000 times more detailed than Myers-Briggs or any of those other things. Something we developed here, and it's 100% accurate as far as I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than showing like a label, like a ISCP or ENTJ or whatever all those labels are, and when people get that label, they go around and say, well, this is what I am, this is how you have to talk to me and all that stuff.
Sure, right, yeah.
What we do here is we show them the conversations that are running inside them and the actions those conversations are producing in their life. It becomes so visible to them. They're like, oh, you're kidding me. And then we also show them like what happens as you shift this to this, and then they begin to have an active imagination, and then they get to make a choice. And once that person begins to understand how the system works, it becomes very apparent for them, because they love. I mean, really, people want love and they hope for love and all that stuff, and really desire to be successful. But if they've been sabotaging themselves, we show them an easy path to it. And some people won't buy it, and they'll leave, and that's fine, and other people will really step up for it.
Wow. Sorry, I had a note there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of these days I'll show you our diagnostic tool, because that's really, really wild.
Well, maybe we'll have to do a part 2 of this. This is great. This is so much fun. Well, I've taken so many notes myself. I appreciate that conversation as well, because what I really believe is that I want this show to be a space where people come, get to know unique entrepreneurs, but also get to know, like, have 1, 2 little pieces, nuggets that they can use to take back. Even if it was everybody on this call listening were to be able to say, okay, I'm going to look at my challenges or whatever I call them throughout the day as gifts, as opportunities, as ability to not compete on the complaining factor that everybody else is doing, right? To be that one oddball in the conversation that says, you know what, I am really grateful that we're having this challenge. I'm really grateful that I'm struggling with this situation, because then it allows them to open their mind up to new other possibilities.
Yeah. And all the pain and all the struggle, all that's like a folding of the steel. Like the master swordsman, like samurai swordsmen, like they would, they could fold the steel, and the greater the ability to fold the steel, the stronger the steel got. Sure. And so a sword by a master swordsman could cut through the swords by another person. And they put those swords under an electron microscope, and they found out what was happening when they folded the steel. The molecules began to arrange in a grid pattern.
Oh.
Instead of chaos, they became organized in a grid.
Wow. That's cool.
So once that organization and that order in that internal organization of the sword could cut through the chaos of another pattern, they become the peak, the calm in the eye of the storm. There's a There's a quote I have here. I've had on my desk for 40 years. It says, leading organizations successfully today requires leaders to transform themselves personally. New leadership literature shows a consistent correlation between personal leadership success and their level of self-mastery. The greater their mastery, the greater their success. And this is by Mark Mickelson and John Anderson. So the only thing we can control is ourselves. But being able to control our own body chemistry in the heat of a turmoil, and that's a measurement also of emotional intelligence. Whenever people do our classes, their emotional intelligence improves a lot as well.
Sure.
So they begin to become effective in a moment rather than hours or weeks.
Wow. Wow. So much good stuff. So much good stuff, Mark. Man, this is crazy. This is so much fun. I love it. I love it. I love learning this stuff. I really appreciate like when I get to hear from other people's perspectives and wisdom and life experience. And it just opens me up to so much more. And I know it has done that for everybody listening to the show. Where can people find out more about Encompass Life and see if this is a good fit for them with whatever they might be challenged with, or just want to go to the next level in their business?
Yeah. So, so we travel. I travel. I'm doing a class in Dallas, July 19th through the 21st. I'll be in Jacksonville, Florida, August 2nd through the 4th. But you can go to my website, encompasslife.com. We're totally rebuilding that right now. You can send me an email to Encompass Life, and if you do so, please put Dino in the subject matter so I know where you came from.
Oh, nice.
And
so it's encompasslife.com, ENCOMPASS life.com. You're also on, I think we found each other on LinkedIn, I believe. So
yes, sir.
LinkedIn is a great place, right, to connect.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. LinkedIn.com.
Quantum leap technique.
Leap technique.
Yeah, that gives us all our social media is at that, and that's what we're basically doing. Instead of working on changing habits, working on changing a culture, it can be done in a matter of minutes. Really, it's really different.
Wow, so cool. I love it.
Thank you. Me too.
Wow. Well, Mark, thank you for sharing your information, sharing your life and your experience and your wisdom with us today. It really was a masterclass in this conversation. I really appreciate it and opened my eyes to stuff. I'm always into personal development. I love talking about mindset and I teach about it a lot, but whenever I see a different perspective and it helps me break through some ideas, I really appreciate it. It's really more for me than anybody else listening to this show. So, but I'm sure that other people listening got the same effect. I end every episode with asking 4 specific questions from all of our guests. They're kind of rapid fire, just off the top of your head. Are you willing to play?
Yes.
So they're based on the role, ROLE, that we play in life. And the first one is, what is the highest and greatest responsibility you feel you have on this earth?
Interesting. To become the best I can for me, because as I do so for me, it affects everyone else around me.
Yeah. Very cool.
Instead of trying to change everybody else, I change myself, and then everybody else around me moves up with me.
Well, the only one you can control anyway, right?
The only one I can control.
Yeah. Question 2 is around your outcomes in life. So what do you want as the ultimate outcome for your life?
When I was a kid, I desired for my dad to be proud of me. Mm-hmm. I choose. No, he never said that, and he passed without that, and without me saying that. I used to want it. I used to pine for it, and after he passed, I had a dream where he came, with the dream, and in the dream he goes, "Man, I really get what you're doing. I'm really proud of you." And I woke up with wet pillows, and I also began to realize at that time that instead of looking for it from an outside source, I could find it inside myself, and then didn't have that codependent relationship and all that pining. So for me to be proud of myself and what I'm accomplishing and what we're doing here in the company, and and for our clients to do better than me.
That's cool. Next one is all around leadership. So you mentioned a little bit about leadership earlier, but what do you consider true leadership to be?
You got some good questions, dude. Stringing together as many wins as you can. It used to be, I used to hear creating a win-win environment, and I believe that that's fallen by the wayside now. I believe that the double win is inadequate for what we're doing now. That for people to be and companies to be really successful, it has to be win, 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 and to be able to compete on how many wins you can put together in a string.
I love that idea. You can see that kind of like the little chains that you used to have as a kid, right? The paper chains, right? How many wins can you link together? Love that. Okay. The fact of the matter is that every single one of us will have a final day on this earth. Hopefully it is years and years and years from now. But what experience do you hope or want to have between now and dead?
Oh, dude. I choose to get married again.
No, awesome. It's a great institution. I highly recommend it.
I've been single for 30 years, man.
Wow. Well, my hope and wish for you is that comes true, because we all deserve to find and to be in that space of experiencing exactly what we wanted to. I believe that there'll be a day, and I know there'll be a day where all of us will have that final moment where our eyes close, right? I have a client who talks about breathing is the first thing we do in this life, and it's the last thing we'll do in this life. And I imagine looking up and seeing the pair of eyes that I got to spend those last moments with being the thing I want to see when I slip away. So I hope that I have that wish for you. That's great.
Thank you. I got somebody really, really great in my life, and now it's really, really awesome, but really awesome.
Well, you're not getting any younger, Mark. So
thanks for reminding me, bud.
Well, thank you for being a part of this
Welcome.
show, and I really appreciate it. Everybody, please reach out to Mark at Encompass Life and see if any one of his classes are in your local area, or I know he's got online classes, and just the ability to reach out and see if there's any way that you can get more of Mark, because it sounds like a lot of us need more of Mark in our life. Thank you, Mark, for being a part of it today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Love your questions, man. Great podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Well, everybody, again, thank you for joining us on the Own Your Role podcast. That wraps up another episode for us. And please, if this episode or any of the episodes connected with you in any way, shape, or form, make sure you share it with a friend or a colleague and let them know why you're sharing this with them, and spread the love. Appreciate you all. Don't forget to like and share. We will see you on the next episode of Own Your Role.